Picture this. It's March 8th. Interstate 40 in northern Arizona is completely shut down. Over 2 feet of snow have come down in a matter of hours, and the high country looks more like the Arctic than the desert. Drivers who thought they found a clever detour are finding out the hard way that a back road in a blizzard and a front-wheel drive sedan are a genuinely bad combination. Cars are stacking up, families are stranded. Some of these people have been sitting out there for hours with the heat running and no idea when anyone is coming. Then Wrecker Rick shows up. He and his crew work straight through, no stopping, no clock watching, no invoice waiting at the end. By the time 40 hours pass, they've pulled out close to 30 vehicles. And when the line of cars finally starts to thin out, Rick describes what he saw in those final hours, wave after wave of traffic still pushing toward the storm. Groups of 15-20 cars at a time rolling up behind the ones already buried in snow. At a certain point, they had to physically turn people around because there was nothing left to do. The road had beaten everyone. News crews showed up. Fox 10 Phoenix ran the story. Suddenly, the name Wrecker Rick was reaching people who'd never heard of him. But here's what nobody reported. That moment didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of a series of deliberate decisions. Some risky, some counterintuitive, some that people around him probably thought were flat out crazy. And every single one of them stacked on top of the last, until Murphy's Diesel became something that a towing operation out of small-town Arizona had no business becoming. This is how that happened. Rick Murphy isn't complicated to understand, but he's easy to underestimate. He's the kind of guy you notice immediately. Gruff voice, straight talk, zero patience for nonsense. He's not going to perform enthusiasm he doesn't feel, and he's not going to soften a hard truth just because someone doesn't want to hear it. In the Arizona trucking and recovery world, that kind of personality either gets you a reputation fast or gets you nothing at all. For Rick, it went the first way. He built his working life around diesel mechanics and towing in northern Arizona long before Murphy's Diesel existed as a name. That stretch of I-40 between Ash Fork and Flagstaff, the back roads that wind out toward Peach Springs and Tuba City, the kind of terrain where a stuck semi isn't just an inconvenience but a real emergency. That was his world. He knew the land, knew the equipment, and knew exactly how badly things could go wrong if the right people didn't show up with the right tools. What he didn't have yet was a plan to turn that into something bigger than himself. That changed in 2014. Starting a business is never the brave move people make it out to be in hindsight. When Rick and Nikki Murphy launched Murphy's Diesel in 2014, they weren't making a calculated bet on a thriving market. They were starting a towing and diesel repair operation in a part of Arizona where the landscape is enormous and the population is not. One truck, one location, a husband and wife deciding to build something from the ground up in a niche where the margins are hard and the hours are harder. Nikki's role in all of this tends to get overlooked, which is a mistake. Running the business side of an operation like Murphy's Diesel isn't a background job. Scheduling, customer relations, finances, parts ordering, keeping the whole machine moving so Rick could focus on actually doing the work. That was her lane. Co-owner from day one, not a supporting character. The business they built is a joint operation in every real sense. And it's worth saying that plainly because a lot of people watching the YouTube channel see Rick's face on everything and assume the story starts and ends with him. It doesn't. In those early years, Murphy's Diesel was a local name, known in Ash Fork and the surrounding communities, respected by people who dealt with them, but not much beyond that. They were doing good work and building a reputation the slow, honest way, one recovery at a time, one repair at a time. That's a sustainable model. It's not a growth model. And then someone picked up a camera. The decision to start filming their work wasn't an obvious one. Rick Murphy is not a natural content creator in the traditional sense. He's not performing for the lens, he's not packaging his personality for an audience, and he's definitely not going to change how he talks or acts because there's a camera rolling. That authenticity, which sounds like a buzzword when you describe it but is instantly recognizable when you see it, turned out to be exactly what people were hungry for. Nobody sat down and designed the Murphy's Diesel channel around a strategy. The content is just what they do. Recovery operations on brutal terrain, heavy equipment work that most towing companies won't touch, repairs in conditions that would send a lot of people home early. The camera follows along. Rick explains what's happening in plain language, and the viewer gets the feeling that they're watching something real because they are. There's a specific type of viewer that gravitates toward this kind of content. They're not casual scrollers looking for a laugh. They're truck people, recovery people, the kind of audience that will pause a video to look more closely at a rigging setup and comment about whether they'd have done it differently. They're engaged, loyal, and they share everything they watch with people who are wired exactly the same way. That audience doesn't arrive instantly. It accumulates, slowly at first, then faster than you expect. Murphy's Diesel built that kind of following, and as the channel grew, it started doing something interesting. It stopped just reflecting the business. It started pulling the business forward. At some point, Rick Murphy made a decision that should have made no financial sense. He started doing off-road recoveries in the backcountry for free, not as a one-off goodwill gesture, as a regular practice, a core part of how Murphy's Diesel operates. Out in Peach Springs, Williams, Tuba City, Page, the remote stretches where getting stuck doesn't just mean being late, it means being genuinely stranded with no cell signal and no other options. Murphy's Diesel shows up and doesn't hand you a bill. The recovery happens, the vehicle gets pulled out, and you go home. That's it. Think about that from a pure business standpoint. This is a multi-truck heavy recovery operation. The equipment, the fuel, the crew time, none of that is free to deploy. Choosing to absorb that cost on a regular basis in a business that runs on tight margins is not the obvious call. Most people in the industry wouldn't do it. Some would think it was reckless. What it actually did was build a kind of trust and community goodwill that money can't buy. The people they rescued didn't just feel grateful. They talked about it. They posted about it. They sent people to Murphy's Diesel when those people needed paid services. And the content that came out of those free recoveries was some of the most compelling material on the channel. The kind where you genuinely don't know how the truck is coming out, and you keep watching because you need to see the resolution. The paid side of the business didn't suffer from the free recovery model. If anything, it expanded because of it. And when drivers tried to push money into Rick's hands, which happened more often than you'd think because some people simply couldn't accept a free rescue, he didn't pocket it. He took whatever they insisted on giving him and passed it directly to the next person he helped who was in need. He said it plainly in a Fox 10 interview. If you won't take no for an answer, that money goes to someone else. That's not a business strategy. That's just who the man is. But it shaped Murphy's Diesel more than anything else. The March 8th storm story isn't just a feel-good headline. It tells you something structural about what Murphy's Diesel had become by that point. When Interstate 40 shut down and drivers started flooding the back roads, looking for a way around the closure, Rick didn't wait to be called. He was already out there. The operation ran for 40 hours straight, pulling out close to 30 vehicles in conditions that most towing companies would have cited as too dangerous for backroad callouts. What made the Fox 10 coverage noteworthy wasn't just the scale of it. It was the detail that Murphy's Diesel is contracted by law enforcement, Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, and ADOT to clear the major highways. That's a completely different level of operational recognition than a YouTube channel with a loyal audience. That's the county and the state road authority saying, when something big and bad happens on this stretch of road, Murphy's Diesel is who we call. The highway contract work is paid, the backroad rescues in a blizzard are not. Rick was doing both that weekend simultaneously for 40 hours in a snowstorm. That story moved. It got shared by people who'd never heard of the channel. It introduced Murphy's Diesel to a regional audience that knew the roads but didn't know the brand. And it reinforced something the existing audience already believed, that this wasn't an entertainment operation with a recovery business attached to it. It was a recovery operation full stop that happened to let cameras come along. At some point, the single location in Ash Fork wasn't enough to cover what Murphy's Diesel had become operationally. The territory they were working had grown. The call volume had grown. The equipment had multiplied. The crew had expanded. Today, Murphy's Diesel operates out of 3 locations across northern Arizona: Ash Fork, Flagstaff, and Holbrook. That's not a footnote, that's a real logistics achievement. Running one heavy towing and recovery operation is hard. Running 3 with geographic coverage that stretches from the Flagstaff area all the way east toward Holbrook and west to Ash Fork along I-40 means you're maintaining equipment, coordinating crews, and managing customer relationships across a serious chunk of territory. Flagstaff makes obvious sense. It's the largest city in the region, sits at over 7,000 feet elevation where winter recovery work is constant, and sits directly on I-40 where the law enforcement contracts originate. Holbrook is the eastern anchor, covering a stretch of highway and backcountry that sees its own steady stream of stuck and broken equipment. Ash Fork is the original, the home base, the place where it all started in 2014 with 1 truck and 2 people who decided to build something. 3 locations also means 3 times the overhead, 3 times the staffing complexity, 3 times the equipment maintenance. Growing a service business geographically is one of the hardest scaling moves there is, because unlike a product that can be replicated and shipped, a towing operation requires people and machines to physically show up. You can't automate a recovery. You can't offshore a blown axle on a mountain road at 2 a.m. That Murphy's Diesel pulled it off says something about the operational discipline behind the brand and brings it back to Nikki's role. Someone is managing the back end of a 3-location operation while Rick is out pulling stuck semis out of creek beds and building truck monsters in the shop. That kind of business doesn't run itself. If you want a single project that captures where Murphy's Diesel's ambitions went after the channel found its audience, it's Hellboy. That's the name of what Wrecker Rick and the crew are building, what they're calling the world's largest off-road wrecker. And the foundation for it is a 1969 Peterbilt 352, the old needle-nose cab-over engine design, with the cab sitting directly on top of the engine. It's a compact-looking truck by modern standards, which is almost funny given what they're doing to it because nothing about the finished product is going to be compact. They gutted it completely. The frame got shortened, military-spec axles went in, the front axle got repositioned, moved way forward to create a better approach angle, which required building entirely new motor mounts from scratch. The original cab was swapped out for a cab from a different truck, then chopped and modified to sit low on the frame. The interior is a full gut job. Original dash pulled out, custom roll cage going in. The Holmes 750/600 wrecker unit that came on the truck, gone. They're building a custom mast and mounting up to 7 Warrior winches, repositioning the air tanks, dropping the center of gravity as low as physically possible. Rick's own words during the build series summed up the goal. We're going to compact it really low, make it really stout, and really lightweight. That's an engineering contradiction on paper. You're simultaneously trying to build the largest and the most capable off-road recovery vehicle ever assembled, while also making it low, tight, and trail-worthy. Every design decision was a trade-off, and every trade-off got documented on the channel. This is the kind of build series that keeps a YouTube audience locked in for months, not because it's entertainment staged for cameras, but because it's genuinely unclear whether it's going to work. Nobody has done exactly this before. The uncertainty is real, the technical challenges are real, and Rick's blunt assessment of each problem as it comes up, none of the optimistic hand-waving you get on other build channels, keeps you watching because you trust him to tell you the truth about it. Hellboy isn't finished proving itself yet, but the fact that it exists at all says something about the mentality that's driven Murphy's Diesel since day one. Why build a regular wrecker when you've spent 10 years proving you can do things other people won't attempt? Something happened along the way that Murphy's Diesel probably didn't plan for. The brand started moving past northern Arizona. The Instagram account sits at 267,000 followers. The Facebook page has closed in on 500,000 likes, nearly 474,000 as of early 2026. That is not a regional audience. That's a national following for a towing operation based in a rural Arizona county, built entirely through authentic content and a reputation that people in the truck and off-road community pass around by word of mouth. That scale of audience creates commercial opportunities that didn't exist in 2014. The Murphy's Diesel online store sells branded recovery gear, including a collaboration with Yankum Ropes that produced a limited edition kinetic recovery rope designed to Rick's specs and tested in real-world conditions before it ever went on sale. Rated for 3/4 to 1-ton trucks, black jacket, red eyes, Murphy's Diesel tag. The branding isn't slapped on something generic. It came out of an actual working relationship between two brands that both operate in the same niche. That's what happens when a local business becomes a national name without losing the thing that made the local audience trust it in the first place. You don't chase the audience, you build the thing, document it honestly, and the audience finds you and drags the commercial side of the business with it. Crew members like Indiana Homes and HB have become recognizable figures in the Murphy's Diesel content, which is another smart long-term move, even if it wasn't necessarily calculated that way. When the people around you on camera are real and interesting and good at their jobs, the audience invests in all of them. That investment creates depth in the brand that a one-man channel can never fully replicate. Murphy's Diesel isn't a personality channel with recovery content. It's a recovery operation that happens to have personalities in it. That's a small but critical distinction, and it's probably why the audience has stayed while a lot of similar channels have come and gone. Here's what's easy to miss when you look at the Murphy's Diesel story from the outside. There's no single moment where everything changed. There's no pivot, no viral video that rewrote the trajectory overnight, no television deal that made them famous. What there is instead is a long sequence of decisions made by two people who knew what they were good at and refused to compromise on it. Start the business, film the work, do the free recoveries because that's the right thing to do. Take the law enforcement contract, expand to 3 locations because the territory demands it. Build something nobody's built before because that's what you do when you stop letting the industry's ceiling define what's possible. Every one of those decisions had a cost. Some cost money, some cost sleep. All of them cost time. Years of showing up every day in conditions that most people would have called a legitimate excuse to stay home. The March 8th storm is probably the cleanest encapsulation of all of it. 40 hours in a blizzard pulling out strangers, for free, while being the same team that's under contract to clear the highway the state closed down. Nobody made Rick Murphy do that. Nobody's watching with a clipboard making sure he hits his numbers. He did it because helping people stuck in bad situations on bad roads is what he does and has always done and will keep doing. And because somewhere along the way, he built an operation big enough and capable enough that when the worst weather in years hits the high country of northern Arizona, he's actually the one who can make a difference. That's the decision that changed Murphy's Diesel forever. Not one decision actually, all of them. One after another for over a decade. The question now is where Hellboy takes them next, because when the world's largest off-road wrecker is finally operational, the kind of recoveries that were previously impossible in that terrain become possibilities. And if Murphy's Diesel's track record says anything, they're not going to leave those possibilities sitting on the table.